Have you ever wondered how autopilot really works on an airplane and whether it's truly flying the plane on its own? You're not alone. Lots of people have the same curiosity. After all, isn't that just a fancy term for pushing a button and letting the plane go by itself? Well, let me assure you, autopilot is much more than that. It's like having a co-pilot who's really good at their job and can take over some of the work for the pilots. But it's not magic. It works using a bunch of sensors, computers, and control systems. Imagine you're driving your car on a long trip, say from New York to Los Angeles. You might start by manually steering, but as you get comfortable with the road, you can let the cruise control handle much of the work, especially when you hit the highway. It's similar for an airplane. And here's the surprising part. Autopilot isn't just one simple mode. It has different levels, kind of like having different driving modes in your car. Autopilot Level 1 might help with keeping the plane on course and at a steady speed. Think of it as cruise control on steroids. But some autopilot systems can do even more. They can handle turns and banking too. It's like having an advanced GPS system that not only tells you when to turn, but also helps you make those turns smoothly. But remember, even with all these capabilities, the pilots are always in charge, just like how your hands stay on the steering wheel during a long drive. So, autopilot isn't really flying the plane by itself. It's more about assisting the pilots so they can focus on other important tasks and takeovers if needed. It's reliable and has saved many flights from minor issues by taking over mundane tasks. Okay, so let's dive into the basics of autopilot. Have you ever driven a car with cruise control? You hit that button, and it keeps your car moving at the same speed without you having to keep pressing the gas pedal. That's kind of what autopilot does for planes, but on a much bigger scale. Imagine you're flying in a small airplane and you want to stay on a straight path. The autopilot system is like an advanced version of that cruise control. It uses sensors all over the plane, some that check altitude, others that track direction, and some that look out the windows using special cameras or radar to constantly monitor where the plane is going. These sensors feed information into a computer brain on board the aircraft. Think of this computer as the autopilot's nervous system. Just like your car has a GPS to help you follow directions, the autopilot uses data from these sensors and navigation systems to figure out where it should go next. So here's the cool part. When everything is set up right, the autopilot can keep the plane flying in a straight line or on a specific course, just like how your car stays on the highway thanks to cruise control. It adjusts the plane's speed and even its pitch, how nose up it is, to make sure it stays on track. And here's where things get really interesting. Autopilot systems can handle so much more than just maintaining altitude or a steady speed. They can also adjust for changes in wind, turbulence, or other unexpected conditions. It's like having a super smart co-pilot always keeping an eye out and ready to make adjustments, but without the need for someone to sit there all day. So you see, autopilot is just a very sophisticated and incredibly useful way of making sure planes fly safely and efficiently. And it's doing its job almost entirely behind the scenes, so you probably won't even notice it's working most of the time. And here's the surprising part. Autopilot systems rely on a wide range of sensors and data inputs, including GPS, accelerometers, and gyroscopes, to accurately determine the plane's position, altitude, and direction. It's kind of like how your smartphone uses GPS and sensors to navigate. Imagine you're trying to find your way from one end of a city to another using just your smartphone. You wouldn't want to rely on just one piece of information, right? You need your phone to tell you where you are, GPS, how fast you're moving, accelerometer, and which direction you're heading, gyroscope. These sensors work together seamlessly to give you the best possible navigation. Now think about the plane. It has all these fancy sensors too, like a super smart smartphone on steroids. The autopilot system uses them in much the same way. GPS. This is like your phone's mapping app. It tells the autopilot exactly where the plane is located and what its destination is. Accelerometers. These are like the sensors in your phone that tell you when it's moving or falling. They measure how fast and which direction the plane is accelerating or decelerating. Gyroscopes. Think of these as the compass in your phone, but much more sensitive. They track the plane's orientation and rotation. These sensors work in harmony, constantly sending data to the autopilot's computer, which then calculates the exact movements needed to keep the plane on course. It's like having a super intelligent co-pilot checking every piece of information and making split-second decisions based on it. But even with autopilot engaged, human pilots are always monitoring the system and ready to intervene if needed. As autopilot is designed to assist, not replace, the pilots, they can take control back at any moment. Just like how you might take the wheel back from cruise control in your car. Imagine you're driving down a highway with cruise control on. The car's sensors are constantly checking things like speed and distance from other cars. But if something goes wrong, say another driver suddenly cuts you off, the system won't be able to handle that unexpected situation. That's where you come in. You can take back control of the steering wheel at any moment. Pilots do exactly the same thing. They have a variety of instruments and displays that constantly give them real-time data on everything from altitude to speed. And just like how you might quickly turn your car around if someone suddenly blocks your lane, pilots are trained to recognize when the autopilot needs their input. For example, during takeoff and landing, those critical phases where there's a lot of manual flying required, pilots will switch off the autopilot. During these times, they rely on their own sensory inputs and experience to ensure everything goes smoothly. And what about unexpected events? Well, let's say you're in heavy turbulence. The autopilot might struggle with it, but your trained eyes can recognize when to take control. Turbulence detection systems can only go so far. Human pilots have the ability to make split-second decisions that a machine simply can't match. Incredibly rare as it is, there are also instances where the autopilot system itself has malfunctioned or failed completely. In such cases, the pilots will manually take over without hesitation, ensuring the safety of everyone on board. So, while autopilot does an amazing job at managing routine tasks and making flying incredibly smooth and more comfortable for passengers, it's always the human pilots who have the ultimate responsibility and control to ensure everything runs safely. All right, so we've talked about how pilots oversee autopilot during the flight, but let's dive into the nuts and bolts of autopilot modes and why it's not a hands-off situation from start to finish. When you're taking off, the autopilot is on high alert. It's kind of like when you're driving a car through a construction zone. Everything needs extra attention and safety checks. At takeoff, the autopilot can help with keeping the plane on course, but has strict rules about staying within certain speed limits and altitude ranges. The pilots are still in control, making sure everything is going smoothly. Once you hit cruising altitude, think of it like highway driving. The autopilot does most of the heavy lifting here. It can handle maintaining a steady altitude and speed, just as your cruise control on the highway keeps your car at a constant pace. But remember, even in this mode, there's no autopilot version of that sleepy driver who might fall asleep behind the wheel. Pilots still need to be alert for any unexpected changes or issues. Now let's talk about landing. This is where things get really interesting and complex. Approaching an airport is like threading a needle. There's so many tiny details that have to be perfect. The autopilot can help with the descent, keeping the plane on course, and even managing speed, but it's not allowed to land the plane. That's 100% up to the pilots. They will guide the aircraft in for a safe landing, just as you would steer your car into a parking spot if you had a shaky hand. Here's something key. Autopilot has limitations and can't handle every possible scenario. Think of it like having an assistant who handles most tasks but still needs to be told what to do in unexpected situations. The autopilot can set the stage, keep things running smoothly, but when push comes to shove, only a human pilot can make that final landing decision. That's why it's crucial for pilots to stay vigilant and prepared. Imagine if you were reading a map while driving, and suddenly your GPS fails. You'd still need to know where you're going, right? It's the same with autopilot. Even when things are running smoothly, pilots need to be ready to step in at any moment. Autopilot is just one tool in their toolkit, not the pilot. So, remember, while autopilot does a lot of the heavy lifting during your flight, it's still up to the pilots behind the scenes to keep everything safe and secure. They're there as backup, ensuring that no matter what happens, you'll reach your destination in one piece. So, to answer your question, Autopilot really works by using advanced computer systems, sensors, and software to control the plane. But it's always under the watchful eye of human pilots, who are ready to intervene at any moment. Imagine you're driving a car on the highway. The cruise control keeps your speed steady, just like an autopilot helps the plane maintain its altitude and course. But if there's something unexpected, like construction or a traffic jam, you still need a skilled driver to take over. Similarly, human pilots are always in the cockpit, ready to handle any situation that might arise. Autopilots make air travel safer by taking care of routine tasks, allowing pilots to focus on more complex issues. They also help planes fly more efficiently, saving fuel and reducing emissions. But remember, the autopilot is a tool, not a replacement for human judgment. Pilots are trained to work with these systems flawlessly, ensuring that your flight remains safe. If you've ever wondered how flying really works, and now you know more about it, that's amazing. If you want to continue learning about aviation and get even deeper insights into how planes operate, be sure to subscribe for more explanations and insights. You might find yourself looking at a plane in the sky with a whole new perspective.